I learned about this guy here, Dan Wootton, from following Johnny and Amber, and Dan wrote not such nice things about Johnny in The Sun. Allegations, in fact. But now, Dan's got allegations against him. What I keep saying is, these two guys who are writing these articles were ex-colleagues of Dan. They know Dan. So they started a fundraiser here, and they explain about the why a little bit. It's from the Byline shop. It's called Breaking the Dan Wootton Scandal. Help us keep exposing wrongdoing in the national media. So they're claiming it's not only about Dan, but there's a wider scope of things going on, which is pretty obvious. And I'm interested, but the main thing for now is going to be Dan. Let's see what they say. We're Tom Latcham and Dan Evans, the investigative journalist who finally broke the Dan Wootton scandal on Byline Times. The story was a result of a 3-year investigation into one of TV's most powerful presenters. But it's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to what we believe must be exposed in the public interest. Sounds good to me. Like I said, I'm all ears with this stuff. We have a number of stories that reveal unscrupulous actions from people within the national news media. Despite being fully aware of the allegations, because we put the story to some of the biggest names in journalism, the established press decided not to report on the shocking findings from within its own ranks until Byline Times put its head above the parapet. We all need to ask ourselves why. But the Dan Wootton story goes much wider than the actions of him alone. It's a story about the toxic culture of the national media itself, and we want to keep telling this story. So far, as freelance investigative journalists without a big established media outlet backing us, we have received no money for working on this long-running investigation. To expose the actions of litigious people with big pockets, we are crowdfunding to cover our costs to make sure we can carry on speaking to sources and give compliance a voice. Like Alex, who's telling them this stuff about Dan. Like this model Lee who came out, who's telling them this stuff about Dan. Well, Lee told The Guardian also, but Lee would be an example of somebody who's a compliant. For legal threats, we may, if need be, set up a ring-fenced legal fighting fund at Crowd Justice. If you, like us, believe this is a story worth Byline Times following, please do contribute whatever you can to keep it all going. All donations of our Media2 crowdfunder will go directly to funding our journalism. Byline Times has no oligarchs, adverts, or subsidies. Our work is paid for by our readers, independent investigative journalism outside the system. This is why we can bring you the story the other papers won't. Alright, I understand why they wouldn't want ads. It could make them look a little bit more suspicious on their part, that they're trying to get money out of this, that's why they're doing it, for the ad revenue. But I just have this feeling most people will understand. Most of their core audience should understand that's necessary. But I see why they're doing it. It definitely does give a more trustable feel. Maybe they could set up some kind of limited advertising that doesn't like spam everywhere while you're reading. I don't know. Personally, I wouldn't mind. Judging so far, I think they deserve a little bit more. And yes, to cover legal fees would be a good idea. Here's the little tier of breakdown. You could donate as much as you want, or the set amount. Looks like for people who donate £500 or more, they've got a special mention. And, by the way, looks like they've already raised quite a bit. This will, of course, be linked down below. If you're enjoying the Dan Wootton stuff, big thank you here for watching these videos. But of course, without Byline Times, none of it's possible. So definitely check this out. If you're not subscribed here, consider it. I'll be following Dan till the end. Also, pop culture. Whatever comes up with Depp and Heard if it's worthy. And if you're not subscribed here, consider it. If you don't, I'll be sad, but I'll get over it. See you next time.